Okay, so this has been actually rocking Ukrainian social media and legitimate media, because Ukraine is basically, at least some units are in a lot of trouble for what they say are emaciated soldiers. And you can see from these pictures, they really are emaciated soldiers. I mean, these guys are just rail thin. Reportedly, some of them were actually beginning to lose consciousness and resort to drinking rainwater. Now, the specific region is over the Oskil River near Kupiansk. So let me show you guys the problem here. And so here's the Oskil, and Kupiansk is up here, right here. And so you can see this has been an area that was held by Russia. Ukraine pushed them out. And now you can see, again, there's a fair number of attacks taking place here. But the problem is this river, the Oskil. And it's not actually the Oskil per se. But the problem is that, as we have talked about on this channel ad nauseum, the Ukrainians say, systematic enemy air and missile strikes on crossings over the Oskil significantly complicate logistic support of Defense Force units in the area. These are from the 2nd Mech Battalion of the 14th Separate Mechanized Brigade, resulting in a relief of commanders, Ukrainian leadership saying we had no idea this was happening. I don't believe that for a single second. Right? In these difficult conditions, special attention is being paid to supplying our servicemen carrying out tasks on the front line. The General Staff alleged the brigade failed to accurately report the situation on the ground, contributing to the loss of positions and errors in troop support. Euphemistic, but also confirmed food supply problems at one position, echoing reports that soldiers had gone up to 17 days without adequate food or water. Commander of the 14th was dismissed. Commander of the 10th Army Corps demoted. Now, this is though a actual reflection of the real problem, and nobody seems to be talking about this. Ukraine's Joint Task Force, an army unit created last year to lead troops in Kharkiv, describes the situation as horrible management shame. Consequence of long-term management decisions at the corps level and its interaction with units. Reports were heard at various levels. The situation was organized and controlled, which everyone saw does not correspond to reality. It's actively working to solve the problem. Additional supplies sent to the positions of the 14th. Right, the main thing is to preserve people and a humane attitude towards them. Everything can be corrected through systematic work. And they say, listen, the life of a serviceman is absolute priority. Okay, none of this addresses the actual issue here. The actual issue, at least as I saw in December, every single soldier I talked to was absolutely transparent, completely transparent, that the hardest part of fighting is supplying positions. Why is that? And they say, oh, it's enemy air and missile strikes over the Oskil. And that is partially true. You see, both sides have been increasingly prioritizing striking logistics 40 to 50 kilometers from the front line. In fact, let's use this, because this is going to be a way better way to illustrate what I'm talking about. So, Kupiansk right here. Right, this is pretty good. So, you are a Russian mid-range drone pilot. You can reach 50 kilometers into the backfield, or you have a 50-kilometer range, we'll say. You launch your strikes from lightly into the gray zone, maybe as far back as 15 clicks from the gray zone. So let's say you're a Russian mid-range drone pilot. You're going to launch your fixed-wing drone from Mykolaiivka, right? 15 kilometers behind the sort of contact zone, comfortably into the gray, right on the border between the gray zone and reality. And the gray zone, remember, is the area 15 kilometers plus or minus the zero line, where you are under continual drone observation, like nonstop. So if you cross this area, you will be spotted by a drone, right? So how far can a 30-kilometer drone, or let's say a 50-kilometer mid-range strike drone, fly? As you can see, he can strike logistics targets 50 plus kilometers away. What does that mean? Okay, what that means is that if you are going to try to, in this scenario, let's say the Ukrainian soldiers are in a position outside of Podoli, right? They're in a field outside of Podoli, in this wood line, right? In our hypothetical, right? So Well, actually, no, they're in a contested zone. So we'll put them right here in this line of trees, right? Very forward, very contested. So how do you get supplies to them? Well, here's what you can't do. You can't drive them up. Okay, why? Because you're under continual observation inside of 15 kilometers, which is basically anywhere inside of Kupiansk, right? Inside of the Oskil. It's doubly hard because, again, if you want to cross the Oskil over the ground, you can't do it because there's only a few crossing points, and those crossing points are under 24-hour observation. So as soon as you drive a truck with food and water over that bridge, you're going to get blown the fuck up. But there's a problem. You may not even make it to the bridge because, again, you are under continuous reconnaissance and fixed-wing strike drone observation for the preceding 50 kilometers, right? So you have to do to get supplies to this position is you have to drive down one of these main thoroughfares, basically to Kupiansk, and then you have to unload your supplies here. Now, over this range, let's say, based on conversations that I had with drones, because remember, food, water, batteries, drones, ammunition, grenades, it's all in one way the same, right? So the drone example, talking to drone labs, if you have 100 drones right here, what we were told is that you can expect about 50 of those drones to make it to a distribution point unharmed. What's going to happen to this distribution point? It's not going to get put into these poor soldiers out here. Not yet. It needs to get into the distribution point, and then they're going to be packaged up as a series of small packages that are only about 6 to 8 kilograms. Those are going to be strapped to the bottom of the Baba Yaga drones, or as they were working on when I was there in December, like basically mini logistics drones that had basically no ability to do strikes, limited ability to do reconnaissance, existed solely to be as lightweight and powerful as possible to ferry logistics, you know, to get 80% of what a Baba Yaga can carry, but with 50% of the cost. Not even, like 10% of the cost. Baba Yagas are very expensive. Well then, so you have your pickup truck full of stuff, let's say 100 kilograms. Then you have to distribute it. You distribute it in Kupiansk. There's only 2 ways it can get there. The first is heavy lift drones. They're going to hop over and in. The second way that is available, that is preferred, is ground drones. Ground drones can carry 100 kilograms, and they can putter along a road or a path to a position. There's a problem here, though. As discussed, crossing points over the Oskil are limited. And those ground drones, they can't wade through a river. They're not sea drones. So they have to cross these bridges. Or, in all likelihood, they are simply not an option. So your only option to ferry supplies to these positions is logistics drones flying 6 to 8 kilograms at a time. And from what we've heard, again, using these FPV drone labs as an example, they said that you're going to see another 50% reduction, attrition, because the Russians are going to shoot down these drones. The Russians are going to be always trying to target and destroy the logistics drone positions. And again, the preferred solution of ground drones, which 50% of them can complete their missions, that ground drone option simply isn't available. And so what you end up with is situations like this, where these soldiers are getting extremely minimal calories, extremely minimal water. Because remember, right, ramen noodles are lightweight. I can get 1,000 calories in a pretty lightweight package if I have to. But getting a day's worth of water is so hard, right? Let's assume 1 gallon per person per day. The requirement for combat troops is higher, but that's pretty easy. So 1 gallon of water, right, is going to be about 4 kilograms, right? So you need about 4 kilograms of water a day, right? So the Baba Yaga drone can get you about 15 kilograms. So you need a daily run of a Baba Yaga drone. It can never be shot down. Conditions always have to be perfect. And you need it to drop every single day to get enough water alone, for a 3-man position to survive. Okay? So do you see the two things? Do you see the constraints that first, do you see the constraints that logistics are under here when you're talking about 50% plus attrition rates? And do you see the way that terrain limits your ability to do these things? People ask, how far does 100 kilograms go? Okay, let's see. So let's see, a Targan ground drone. These are the ones that we actually, this is a contract. These are the ones that we purchased for these units. 200 kilograms, right? So using just water as a metric. So if you can successfully have the Targan run to a position one time, they can keep that position supplied with water for 50 days, 50 days. Whereas one successful run with a Baba Yaga drone, the heaviest heavy lift drone in the Ukrainian arsenal, heavy lift aerial drone, can supply them for 1 day. Do you see the difference here, right? The difference is so obvious. And again, when these ground drones, I mean, this is one of the conversations here. These ground drones are not optional. They're not feel good. They're not nice to haves, right? They are essential resupply tools, right? The alternative to a ground drone is not an aerial resupply. The alternative to a ground drone is a soldier in a pickup truck or an ATV. And those losses are massive. Make sure you guys hit the subscribe button, check out another video here, and of course, become a member at combatvetnews.com for access to an entire archive of premium videos, including combat footage that YouTube would never let me show you. The link is in the description. And of course, a huge thanks to all of the Combat Vet News members.